You're listening to Unmuted Love. Hi there, I'm C. Eshelman, and with 35 years as a marriage and family therapist and 25 years as a parent of 2 children I brought home from the foster care system, I want to welcome you here to Unmuted Love Podcast, the one place where nothing is off limits to say out loud about parenting children from difficult beginnings.
Stop for a minute, stop and breathe for a minute, long it over your head, try to listen instead, won't you? Think for a minute, who you want to be for a minute, don't get over your head, you're like everyone else, aren't you?
Sometimes it's real sweet around here, and sometimes it ain't so pretty, because this is 100% Unmuted Love. So let's go.
You'll be just
I just really want to excitedly introduce C. Eshelman, who's a licensed marriage and family therapist. She is a member of the Attachment and Trauma Specialist and founder of the Attach Place Center for Strengthening Relationships, located in Sacramento, California. She's been in practice since 1987, learning from the best minds in the attachment field, Dan Siegel, Bruce Perry, Bessel van der Kolk, and many others. She works every day with children from difficult beginnings and their parents. Raising 2 neurodiverse children into adulthood has given her the insight, humor, hard-earned wisdom to speak with authority and love. C authored Drowning with My Hair on Fire, Insanity Relief for Adoptive Parents, and is excited to share with parents the Love Matters Parenting Society membership, a year-long comprehensive journey into therapeutic parenting effectiveness while thriving at the same time. That's a mouthful, C, but really, it is fantastic because you are exactly what we believe in and love at the Attachment and Trauma Network, because you are attachment focused and trauma informed, and we cannot get that education, support, resources enough out to families. And so let's dive in. Let's talk about where to begin. We've got so much to talk about. Hopefully we can get to it all. Do you have some opening thoughts?
Oh, I just really enjoyed hearing you, despite how long both of those intros were.
Right.
I actually really just enjoyed hearing you say what you said, because a lot of what I do, I'm a therapist. So a lot of people think I'm always coming from a therapist point of view, but actually I'm probably more a mom of adopted kids, right?
Yes.
Kids with difficult beginnings first. And then I became an attachment and trauma specialist. So I love working with this organization because you're not a bunch of therapists who maybe don't have adopted children and maybe really don't get it. So I love this organization for that reason.
Thank you. Me too. That is exactly what I would say, that when I introduce myself, I always, mention that I'm a therapist and I'm a parenting director, but that my most important job is being a mom to kids who have been affected by trauma. And that's how I got to where I am today. And that's many of our stories. So where do you want to start with maybe some of your best advice for parents who are walking the walk that you and I have been through all these years?
Well, I think there's some basic things that parents really absolutely have to understand. And that is that they are the most important people in their kids' lives.
Mm.
And that they are the healers, and that no matter what kind of therapies there are, the thing that heals the most, the longest, and lasts the longest, and makes the most internal change is the relationship between the parent and the child. And so I think I want parents to know that they need to heal themselves through either lots of self-care, because they maybe come to this place of parenting with a fairly intact childhood and good experiences and no trauma. And then they bring their children home and all of a sudden it's like,
Yeah.
the things that were great for you aren't working with your children. And then you start thinking that you have to go outside yourself, and you do, to get information and education, to be trauma informed. And you might come to this situation with your own history of trauma And so
Right.
if you do, it's so important to get your own healing, get your own work done. And that can be done in a lot of ways too. It doesn't always have to be through therapy, but it does have to be through an informed path. And that will make parenting your children so much easier, because the relationship between you and your child is specific to you, right? It's not
Yeah.
your child's relationship with other people is different, right? So
Right.
the one between you and your child is the one that matters the most to your child, even if your child's pushing you away and pretending that
Right.
it's not
Which they
important.
will. They
They will,
will.
absolutely. So that's, I mean, first and foremost is doing your own work. Even if you come from a secure place, do your own work anyway, to figure out how to strengthen your understanding of trauma. And then if you come from difficult beginnings yourself, and I think people who come from difficult beginnings tend to bring children home from the foster care system, because people who have difficult beginnings have big hearts, and
That's right.
we want to have something be different with these children than we're in our childhood, and we want to give back and do all of that. But if we haven't done our work, we end up with, all I
Yeah.
have is what I had when I was a child. That's not going to work. So you have to get your own healing.
You bring up so many good points. I mean, the first one that, really resonated with me was that the relationship between that parent and child is so critical, more so critical than with a therapist or anyone else. I love what Dr. Jack Shonkoff says about resilience, and how it's that one stable, committed relationship that parent can be, more so than an hour in therapy a week, but when you add in that team, that strong therapist, or your support and resources, how much better that can be, especially for parents who really have their own hard beginnings. And sometimes parents don't even know until those buttons and triggers start getting pushed.
For sure. That's what it was for me. I thought
Mm-hmm.
I was a therapist for 15 years before I brought my kids home.
Yeah.
And, I just thought I was fine. And then
Yeah.
I got my kids home, and I sounded a little bit nutty, like I was losing my mind all the time. I was like yelling and acting like somebody I didn't even recognize. And then it dawned on me that all that stuff in childhood wasn't put behind me.
Yes.
I had just put it behind me without doing the work. So I had to start and do my own work there.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar to me too. I kind of thought I knew everything until I started having children, and then, all that good stuff. But that is excellent, great advice. Parents, we can provide support and resources to parents as they go along their own journey while helping their children on their journey too. So,
well, the topic of this presentation, we sort of bandied it around a bit to try and make it make sense, but we were going to talk about how to teach children to be good people, to model citizenship, to be happy, to have fulfilling lives without punishment. And a lot of parents are like, how are they ever going to learn if we don't punish them, because everybody needs to be punished to learn.
We did grow up hearing that, didn't we?
Yes, absolutely. And I think most people still think that way. And so traditional parenting has quite a bit of that, lots of consequencing and lots of punishments just for wrongdoing. But we need to come from a different place, because our children's brains are different, and they cannot manage the experience of punishment and consequences in the way that maybe an attached child can, a fully attachment glued together child from typical beginnings. I mean, I don't recommend punishment really for anybody, but you can probably withstand it better if you come from typical beginnings. But for sure, if your children come from adversity, then you absolutely have to make safety your primary goal for your parenting relationship. And so you have to find a way to grow the safety and the relationship while holding structure. And that's how you do it without punishment. You just hold structure, and you do it very much the way you might do with a 2-year-old. You don't really scream at a 2-year-old, I hope.
Right.
We don't really spank 2-year-olds. We just assume they don't know, and we're supposed to teach them. So if like just take the classic example of your 2-year-old runs up to the oven and puts their hands on the hot oven, and you say, oh no, and you rush to them and you pick them up and you pull them back and you say, hot, hot, right? And maybe the 2-year-old tomorrow does the same thing. And you pick them up, you pull them back and you say, hot, hot. And you do that over and over, right? With a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And eventually they're telling you, that by the 3rd day, they're coming in and telling you, hot, hot, right? They're putting
Yes.
the stove and you're like, awesome, you learned it, right? So we do that kind of parenting all the time with younger kids. But when our kids get older, we think we have to go to punishment when really the process of learning is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Right. And because our children are often neurodiverse, and I think just by virtue of losing a biological parent for whatever reason and coming to us later in life, even if it's like an hour later, there's still a breach in attachment, which makes their brains neurodiverse and makes them not be able to handle punishment in a way that you intend. What it does teach is that parents are scary and that they're mean and that they are dangerous. And we don't want to be teaching that to our children.
Right.
We want to be teaching them that we're safe.
That's exactly right.
We're compassionate. We're understanding. We get them. And we won't punish them. We will instead teach them. So it's really simple. We all actually know it, except when our kids start getting more conscious, like they get a little older and they understand language, then we start thinking, well, you should be able to follow these directions by now. And of course, our kids are neurodiverse, so they are dysmature. They're a little bit younger than their age, often quite a bit younger than their chronological age. So that having language really doesn't impact the part of the brain that learns. So we just have to understand the brain, the traumatized brain, and how it works. That's another piece, right? Really understand the neurodiversity of your child. And every child who comes from difficult beginnings is neurodiverse.
I think that is such an important piece. And it's not that we have to be really understanding the intricacies of, neuroscience. It's just that these kids are different. Their prefrontal cortex, where that memory and all those things that we need to do to learn isn't quite online when they're in that fight, flight, freeze and don't feel safe, like you mentioned. So we just have to look at them through the eyes of, if I were teaching my 2-year-old or someone much younger chronologically, then how would I react with them and respond with them, as opposed to what their, developmental age versus chronological age, understanding that neurodiversity is so important.
So, I like to say that when you're working with someone who's a lot in survival brain, it's structure. You just draw the lines and help them stay in them. And they're going to go outside the lines because these lines are hard for them to recognize. But that's okay. That's the truth about this child. I read a little something on Facebook, those things with pictures and sayings on up on Facebook all the time. There's more than you would ever want to remember.
Right.
But it came up the other day and I thought, isn't this the truth? And it was a picture of just a small child, but, like 7, 8-year-old child. And the statement on it said, if you have a flower that isn't doing well in your garden, you tend to the soil, you don't change the flower.
Oh my goodness.
And I thought, wow, yeah, that's right. You don't pull up your rose bush, you figure out what kind of soil it needs, or what
get to the root of it.
Yeah. So, I don't know why. I'm sure that's been around forever, and I'm sure I've seen it before, but you know how things sometimes they just resonate better.
Yeah, it's the same thing with when we look at an iceberg and we only see what's above the water, but there's so much more beneath the water. And if we could get to kind of what's underneath these behaviors, which a lot of times is fear, right?
Right.
And that's why you talked about creating that safety and structure. They once they see those boundaries and know them and feel them, they can do better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when they know better, they do better eventually.
That's right.
It's eventual because it's a brain process of creating new neural pathways. And I always like to tell parents that, and I didn't know this, I heard it from, I think, Dan Siegel, but he said it takes 400 repetitions to create one new neural pathway.
Oh,
And so when parents say,
I've tried that.
I've told him 100 times, and I'm
Yeah.
like, well, you only have 300 more to go.
You're a quarter of the way there.
I
Keep
know how
going.
frustrating it is. I do.
Yes.
Trust me, I do. My
But
kids are
you're
older now.
right. You're right. We tend to have these expectations where if you've told them once, that's enough. And obviously that is not enough. So repetition, I love that. That's a good thing to hold on to.
Repetition, structure, compassion, and communication, right? Helping them understand. What amazes me is how little children really understand about relationships when they are teenagers. They don't understand the nuances of relationship often. They understand the nuances of danger, so they can read a face or the relationship for danger. So because we all have micro expressions. I don't know if you know, but like when I'm upset, I get that a more pronounced crease in the middle of my forehead, right? And it tells my children right away, uh-oh, mom's mad. Then they're like all alert to that. But when I'm being really sweet, they still don't, they can kind of look past that. They don't really get that always, because they're more cued into the danger than they are to the sweetness. It's kind of like a safety blindness in a way. They don't see safety, they see danger. And so it's super important, right, for us to realize that so that we give them a conversation about what's happening instead of assuming they know why we're structuring them, for example, or why we're setting a boundary or a limit. They don't always know. And they don't always know about the cues in the relationship. I was talking with a he's 12-year-old boy the other day. And I said, do you know what your face is telling me when we meet up? Because I always say, hey, how are you doing? I say his name, how are you doing? And I'm always smiling at him because I really like him.
Yeah.
And he gives me this, flat affect and flat face and like he doesn't like me. That's what I always think. So how it registers to me is, oh, this boy does not like me. And I've been seeing him for a long time. It's like,
yeah.
And he tells his mom he likes me. So I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, do you know what your face tells me? Do you know your face tells me things, first of all, when I see you? And he's like, no, what do you mean? I'm like, well, does my face tell you things when you see me? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, what does it tell you? And he's like, that I'm somebody that you like. And I'm like, yes. Yes. And I'm like, so what do you think your face is telling me? And he goes, well, I don't know. What is it telling you? And I'm like, well, do you feel your face? No. I'm like, oh, so you don't know what your face is saying to me. And we're doing these Zoom sessions so he can see himself. So I'm like, oh, this is a great opportunity, right? Because you can actually see yourself. So take a look at your face. And if you were looking at you, what would your face be telling you? So it was just you would think a 12-year-old would have some sense of what his face was doing and what he was communicating with his face. And yet, no, he didn't have that. And we had a wonderful session about, he's like, well, so the next time I see you, when you say, hi, how are you doing? I should smile back. And so we talked about mirroring, but he's like, I should just smile back because then I'll be telling you that I like you. And I'm like, yes.
Yes.
And he just looked puzzled, like he had no idea. So it was an interesting conversation, right? And so
I love that.
Our kids are just, their diversity is so deep, and they don't pick up from the environment nuances unless they're nuances of danger.
I remember reading Dr. Vanderkolk said that he had some patients who didn't even necessarily recognize themselves in the mirror. Sometimes we are not, those who have been affected by trauma, by adverse childhood experiences, may not be in connection with their body. There can be quite a disconnect. And you've just illustrated that he wasn't, putting that together, looking at himself was really powerful. And just by you walking him through step by step, you have to do things so explicitly with these kids. And that's a very powerful thing that you did with him. That goes a long way for his healing.
Well, yeah, because I was surprised how interested he was in the conversation. And we have been, I have tried talking to him about it in other ways before, about his facial expression sort of in other ways. But I was talking to him about it in a more advanced way, I think, like at about a 12-year-old level. And he was missing it. And
Yeah.
he was missing his impact on his family, right? They were just feeling like he's walking around angry all the time. And he's not, he tells me, he goes, they think I'm angry all the time. I'm not angry.
Wow.
So, it was insightful for him. So I'm really happy for him and his family.
Oh, that's so powerful. I mean, I think about how many problems happen in families because of simple miscommunications, misread tone of voice, misread facial expression, and how, just by sitting down and doing that, you can really erase some of those miscommunications that happen and lead to these unnecessary moments, of pain or whatever. So
Yes, and I remember just now as you're saying that, I remember about a month ago, I was having a session with this same boy and his mom, and he was misreading her facial cues, thinking that she was angry with him. And it was really that she was trying to show curiosity to him because, so she was looking she was actually being curious. And so she was looking curious, right? Like she would ask questions like, I'm wondering how come blah, blah, right? And he would see the curiousness in her face
furrowed brow
and interpret it as angry. And so he would shut down immediately every time she would act curious. And I had been coaching her to be more curious, And so she was being more and more curious and he was shutting down more and more. And I'm like, oh, well, this is a good example of how therapists just aren't in the sync sometimes, even though I know this family very well, right? So we had a good conversation about it and he's learning to interpret her face better too.
Oh, that's just really powerful, see?
Yeah, it's great work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love doing that kind of work with kids because it's just, there's, if they trust you, right? If you're safe, which is it's key to every relationship, of course. Then it really is like 100% learning process. And that's so good that way,
Yeah.
that. I can't always get there with every child because, like I said, they're safety blind, some of them, and they just cannot ever feel safe with me because I'm a stranger. I want to know too much about them emotionally, and they're too defended really often to share that. It's kind of a sad state to be frozen there. So it takes a lot longer. I can get there, but it takes like years.
And so that's a really good point that, this is not the kind of work that can be done overnight. It takes patience. It takes time. It can take years and years and years. And that we also need to be forgiving of ourselves as a therapist, as a parent, as a victim, of someone that has been, through adverse childhood experiences, that we make mistakes. And sometimes a therapy session or a moment with a child in a parenting, it doesn't go well, but that's okay, that we can continue the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's actually really key. It's like just realizing that never giving up is a thing. You have to really never give up. And even when you're, when hope is not springing eternal this day, to just put yourself to bed and wake up tomorrow and see if you can find it, because you cannot give up. You have to keep going and stay with it. And it can be ugly. It really can. Like when your front window's broken out and you're have bruises on your arm and you're just done. I totally get that. I've been done. And then I wake up in the morning and I start again. And I know people would say, oh, well, that's because, you're some kind of martyr or saint. I'm like, neither. Absolutely neither. I did not want to be doing it. I did not feel like it. I just knew that, these were my children, and it was, it's what love means. It's not necessarily a feeling of love. It's a commitment. And that's what I stuck with, was just my commitment to them. And now my kids are 23 and 25. And I can just see the fruit of the labor. They're not, they're not going to Stanford or, Yale. They're not doing that sort of thing. They're not that kind of kid. They are people who are learning how to be happy in the world.
Yeah.
And that's all I really care about. And I truly mean that, because I've been through so much with them. I didn't even think they would ever be happy in the world. But they are. And so it takes a long time, right? 23 and 25, they're just getting to that place. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful.
Yeah. And I love that neuroplasticity teaches us it's okay to keep going. You haven't lost your opportunity. The brain has not stopped growing and changing, because for a lot of us parents, we get through these moments that are tough in the school years, but then this young adulthood era springs up, and boy, it comes with its own challenges because we're getting into independence and making big decisions that can lead to big consequences. And I mean, at least you can tell that I'm entering that and dealing with that. And, yeah, we still have some work to do, and that's okay.
Oh yeah. Oops, there's my dog. Sorry. The working at home is the benefit.
Yep, that's
Happy
right.
Dogs. Yeah. So it is one of the things that comes, having older children, they don't just grow up, they still need me a lot to help them through being an adult. How do you get roommates? How do you live with people that you don't care for? How do you keep a job when you get angry at your boss, or when it seems unfair, or when you misunderstand your boss, just things like that. They go through all of this all the time. And, I'm happy to be there for them, but it is sort of like still raising them, I'm still on top of raising them.
Yeah.
I'll just say this one thing though about it. The difference now is that they really like me. They really love me and really like me, and they want my help, and they seek it themselves. I don't even offer it anymore. I don't have to, because I know that they will seek it if they need it. And that is really great. That is like such a leap into maturity.
Yes.
And I so love that they're making that progress.
Well, and to me, I imagine that part of the reason they're doing that is because they know that you've stuck through the thick and thin, and that you're safe. You're right. It does all come back to safety, because I don't think they're going to ask for help unless they feel like they're going to get a response out of you that isn't punishment, going back to this original topic, because the punishment doesn't work. We know that, we've learned that. So, what does work? And you've hit on a lot of that.
I mean, you can set limits, like even with my adult kids, I have had to set limits, when they've come asking for help and they're on crashing their, fifth car. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm done helping you with cars. I think you need to get a bike. Like, you're going to have to get your next car.
For your safety and everyone else's. Yeah.
Driving's not for you right now, I don't think.
Yeah,
but,
right.
It's like, I'm sorry, I can't help you right now. It's just, it's too painful and scary. So that was hard, because they still don't like me to say no. But they do accept it better now.
It's tricky because this is a really good thing to bring up, is setting limits with an adult child, because they are legally and chronologically an adult, but may not be developmentally at the age of responsibility with some things. So how do you sort of navigate setting those boundaries,
Well, I think I used to joke with a friend of mine that I think the definition of mother is codependent. Or it's just mothering, like you just hang in here maybe longer than the average bear would. And you have to always balance like how much learning have they made? Are they on the path to learning, or are they just telling you nothing you say matters? I just want what I want. And so if they're still in the, I just want what I want and I don't care what you say, but I want you to give it to me, I think that's the time to set a limit. Yeah. But if they're collaborating with you and they are willing to be in a collaborative relationship with you and they're adults, I think that's when you can give them all the help in the world, right? Yeah. Because the thing you've always wanted was for them to learn collaboration and cooperation. And so if they can do that with you, then you can help them make the leaps that they need to make to, say, get into nursing school or get into, a job or get into a car or whatever, as long as they're working with you, as opposed to just kind of pushing on you, pushing away from you. you have to work on that foundational stuff first, I think.
Oh, I so agree with that. That collaborative relationship, that I love Ross Green's work in talking about that, is so powerful. And giving each other all the respect, giving these kids, they do need control. They do need power. They are desperately seeking it, which is why we see all those behaviors, that are sometimes really unfavorable. But so giving it to them in a safe, collaborative way, oh, it's powerful work.
It is. And it's really delicious work. I really love,
Yes.
it's not work, I mean, I'm a mom. It's just delicious. I love being in this kind of relationship with them. And I wasn't able to have that when they were younger. They were just so busy surviving me.
Right.
And I wasn't able to have that too much. But in adulthood, it's what I've really been longing myself as a parent, is to be able to have that too. So I always tell parents who feel like, well, I don't get anything from this relationship. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry that it feels that way. But, you have to grow their ability to have relationships before they can give anything back.
It's not intuitive to them. This relationship building and growing is really a struggle for them.
Mm-hmm. It really is. And it's because that part of their brain is just not working in the same way. And we have to understand it for what it is. It's not meanness. It's not willfulness. It's not
manipulation
or rejection or all those things. It feels like that, right? So,
but it feels like that. That's where we get caught up.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's a trigger for a lot of us. That manipulation, I hear that from parents all the time. It's a button pusher. But it's not that. So seeing it differently.
Yep. It's not. It really isn't. It's survival. So manipulation is a survival skill for kids. People don't understand lying, taking things, manipulation.
Stealing. Yes.
All of those things are survival skills. And those are also hard to understand. Like, how is that, helping them? When they lie to me, they get into more trouble. And I'm like, well, possibly. But that's not the part that's registering, is that they need to survive in the first place. And the part of the trouble part comes later. And that's not registering as a learning tool, right? Punishment, getting in trouble doesn't register as anything except you're mean.
Right. Especially when you don't have the ability to delay gratification,
Right.
Exactly. And yeah. Oh boy, if I could have parents just hear that and internalize that, that this is what's going on. It's not what you think, and it's not how it appears on the surface.
Right. So can I make a little pitch about that? I really want to encourage people to find themselves somewhere, a long-term learning process where you can get support to do your own work, see your children through a neurodiverse lens, get therapeutic parenting, education and understanding, and then practice with feedback. I really want to encourage you to do that, because therapeutic parenting is hard to learn.
Yeah.
And you can't just read a book and learn it. And you can't just go to therapy one time a week for a couple of months and think you're going to be able to sustain that over time. So find something where you can touch base, a group, even just start a group. If there's no group in your community, start one, so that every week you can come back and work on things in a long-term way. It takes, in my opinion, it takes 1 year to 2 years to get kind of really good at therapeutic parenting. And even then,
I agree.
fall off the path.
Right.
I just, all last year, I built the Love Matters Parenting Society. I just want to say it. And I built it just for this reason, because I've had a practice for a long time now, working, solely with adopted families. And, I've given classes in my office. I've done individual therapy. I've done individual coaching. I've gone into people's houses. I mean, I have really done everything to try and help them make this switch, like a real paradigm shift to therapeutic parenting. And still, I would do all of that. And then 6-8 months later or a year later, they would come back and say, yeah, well, we just, we went back to traditional parenting. And their kids are like, off the hook.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, I've got to do something different. I'm not the soil I'm giving them is not rich enough.
Yeah.
So I developed this online program where they could get a year's worth of support. They can actually have more than that, but it's designed to do their own work, learn about neurodiversity, learn about therapeutic parenting, and get daily coaching from a therapist and other therapeutic parents for the long haul. And it is so incredible to have that. And I'm saying it not so much to promote my thing, but to encourage parents to find something or create it for themselves so that they have that to really make the paradigm shift, because it's so important for your children's healing for you to get that kind or that level of support, daily support, staying on the therapeutic parenting path, because that's what's going to heal their brain and their heart and your relationship with them. So I just really, really want to encourage that, and to not think that you can read a book and that's enough, or go to one seminar and that's enough, or even go to therapy once a week for 6 months. It's just not enough, because it takes so much longer to transform into a therapeutic parent.
I so agree with that. See, how can people get a hold of you and look into the program that you have just talked about? That is why we are here, is to offer resources and support. So talk about how we can really access what you're offering.
Yeah, so you can get a hold of me probably the easiest by emailing me, ce@attachplace.com. That's if you want to directly talk to me. But if you want to just look at the Love Matters Parenting Society, you can just look at the Love Matters Parenting. You can just look that up online, and it's going to take you right to the society, and you can take a look at it. You can also just email me, and I'll send you there too. It's actually, I mean, I did really truly create it only for you parents, because I love you so much. My heart, a lot of times you go to therapy and it's all about the child, and I totally love my children too, and I know you do, but my heart is with you. Maybe because I am you.
Yeah.
But I know that you need way more than you get in the world in order to do this really incredible work for your child. So that's why I put this Love Matters Parenting Society together. And so I've had 1 year of it so far. I just hit my 1 year mark. And so I have graduates now at 1 year, and they're just like, see, we have been through every single training on the planet. We've searched far and wide. We've had therapy, and this process has transformed our family. And I'm just so grateful for just even knowing how to do it. And I only know how to do it because I needed it. This is what I needed. And 20 years ago, nobody even talked about attachment or trauma.
I know.
But now, there are more places, right? So you all are here. People can get a lot from you. They can get a lot from a lot of different places now. But what you want to do is not get too little. That's all. Just don't get too little. It's not enough. And you really need arms around you to do the long haul. So I just want you to love yourself enough to get something for yourself in this process, because you can thrive while raising children from difficult beginnings. You absolutely can. I believe that 100%. And I see it now with the parents who've been through the society, that they figured it out and they are not drowning with their hair on fire like I was.
Yes.
And they still have, this does not transform you into this happy family. I don't mean that. I just mean it helps you transform yourself into a happy parent and understanding your children so that you don't see them in a way that causes more trouble than it heals. So that's all. And it's, wow, it is. I'm like, wow, I did it.
Yes. Yes.
I don't ever want to go back to my office. I just want to do this because it's so helpful. I mean, I am in there 24/7 really. And someone said, how can you do something 24/7? What's wrong with you that you want to do that? And I'm like, well, it doesn't feel like work. I'm not in there 24/7, but I'm in there a lot. It doesn't feel like work, it feels like supporting people on a journey. That's heart work, that's what, I don't know, I'm blessed to have,
Thank you, C.
I just want to encourage people to find self-care where they can. These are hard times right now.
Yeah.
And everybody's having a hard time. It takes even more to have a good life when everybody's struggling. So I just want you to think about that. How can you breathe an extra time, have an extra cup of tea, look at something beautiful once a day, do a loving kindness meditation. It's only 1 minute. You can probably fit that in. Just finding a way to let yourself be on the top of the pyramid at least once a day.
Amen. Good stuff, C. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's nice to see you.
You too.
Hey parents, this is C. Get the help you need to end destructive and chaotic behavior in your home while parenting children from difficult beginnings. I know you need help, and the Love Plus parenting model actually works. I'm inviting you to work with me personally for 6 months in my virtual therapeutic parent program, and I guarantee you results or 100% of your investment back. How is that for a blue ribbon deal? I'm looking forward to working with you. See you on the inside.
Stop for a minute. Stop and breathe for a minute. Long it over your head. Try to listen instead, won't you? Think for a minute. Who you want to be for a minute. Don't get over your head. You're like everyone else, aren't you? You could gain from being a bit nicer. Knowing to talk and when to shut your mouth.
The Unmuted Love podcast is hosted by me, C. Eshelman, attachment and trauma specialist at the Attach Place in Sacramento, California. Our podcast producer is the amazing Saya Clark, and our theme song is Nicer by Houses on the Hill, licensed through Epidemic Sound. Thank you for being such loyal listeners here on Unmuted Love. I'll see you all next week.
You'll be just fine.